Have you ever looked at the pieces of your life and wondered, how do I rebuild from here? When you fall, emotionally, financially, spiritually, it can feel like the ground beneath you has disappeared. But what if the fall isn't the end? What if it's the beginning of something greater? In this video, we'll explore 10 powerful life clues, rooted in timeless wisdom and Stoic philosophy, to help you rise again, stronger, wiser, and more true to who you were always meant to be. Let's begin. 1. Let the fall teach you, not define you. Sometimes the ground comes too fast. One moment you're standing tall, the next you're on your knees. Life doesn't always give warnings, and even when it does, we don't always listen. Falling is not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that you're alive, and anyone who is alive will fall. It may come from failure, a relationship that ended, a job you lost, a mistake that keeps you up at night, or simply the moment life felt too heavy and you couldn't carry it anymore. But listen closely. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it. Many people fall, but only a few rise stronger, not because they're special, but because they decide to learn. They decide that the fall wasn't a definition, it was a lesson. Marcus Aurelius once said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive. Even after pain, even after loss, there is still life. There is still time." When life knocks you down, the first instinct is shame. We think, "I should have known better. I should have done more." But that's the voice of fear, not wisdom. The Stoics teach us that setbacks are natural, and within every fall, there's a seed of transformation. But here's the thing, you don't grow by pretending the fall didn't happen. You grow by facing it, by asking, what can I learn from this? What did this reveal about me? Not in self-hatred, but in self-awareness. Pain can be your teacher, but only if you're willing to sit with it, not avoid it, not drown it in distractions, but look it in the eye and say, "I see you. Now, teach me." Maybe you trusted the wrong person. Maybe you stayed too long. Maybe you acted from fear, not strength. That's okay. Regret is not weakness. It's a compass. If you use it well, it can point you to a better path. The fall does not erase your value. You are not broken. You are in the middle of becoming. You're not behind. You're not late. You're just in the part of your story where the main character struggles before they rise. No great person in history ever lived without falling. Not Marcus, not Epictetus, not Seneca. They all faced hardship. They all lost something, but they didn't let those losses define them. They let them shape their character. So, what now? You can keep replaying the past, or you can start writing the next chapter. No matter how far you've fallen, you can rise again, but not by rushing, not by pretending, by learning, by sitting still long enough to hear what life is trying to teach you. Let the pain open you. Let it soften your ego. Let it burn away the illusions. Because once you rise, you won't just be the person you were before. You'll be wiser, stronger, calmer. There is a quiet power in someone who has fallen and decided to rise without bitterness. Someone who has been hurt but still chooses to be kind. Someone who has every reason to give up but still chooses to try. You are not the fall. You are what you do after. Reflections. If you're listening to this and you're still carrying the weight of your fall, let this be a gentle reminder. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to learn. Instead of blame, you are allowed to rewrite the story, one step, one breath, one decision at a time. Let the fall teach you, but never let it define you. 2. Pain is temporary, but the lesson is eternal. Pain doesn't ask for permission. It shows up in moments you least expect, in the middle of your plans, in the heart of your joy, in the silence after something breaks. Sometimes it comes all at once. Sometimes it lingers quietly in the background. But no matter how it arrives, pain always comes with a question. What will you do with me? Most people run. They try to numb it, hide it, escape it. But the Stoics would tell you something different. They would say, don't run from pain. Sit with it. Study it. Let it make you wiser. Because pain is not just suffering. It is information. It tells you where you were too attached. It shows you where you placed your hopes. It reveals the gap between your expectations and reality. And if you're brave enough to listen, you'll learn something that lasts forever. The pain, it will pass. It always does. No feeling lasts forever, not even the ones that feel unbearable. Emotions are like waves. They rise, they crash, and then they fade. But the insight you gain, that becomes a part of you forever. Let's say you were betrayed. You lost someone. You failed publicly. You were rejected. All of that hurts deeply. But in that space, after the initial sting, there's a window, a small opening where growth begins, where your understanding expands, and where your strength gets rebuilt. Not from ego, but from truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." What did he mean? He meant that pain is real, but suffering is a choice. You can feel pain without letting it consume your identity. You can go through hell and not become bitter. This isn't about pretending everything's okay. It's not about being emotionless. It's about remembering that the story doesn't end in pain. It begins there. Think about this. Some of the most compassionate, grounded, and wise people you'll ever meet are not that way because life was easy. They are that way because life hurt them, and they used that hurt to become better, not bitter. Pain humbles you. It strips away illusion. It shows you what truly matters. And often, it reminds you that the things you feared losing weren't actually what gave your life meaning. After pain, you become more aware. You begin to notice the little things. You start listening more. You become more patient, more present, more real. But that only happens if you're willing to stay with the pain long enough to understand it. You see, we live in a world that worships quick fixes, pills, distractions, motivational slogans. But growth doesn't work like that. You can't fast forward through pain. You have to walk through it, step by step, tear by tear, breath by breath. And then one day, the heaviness lifts. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly. And in that space, you begin to feel something else. Clarity, wisdom, peace. Because now you know, pain isn't forever. But what it taught you, that stays. That shapes you. That becomes a part of your character. The Stoics believed that adversity is not a punishment. It is an opportunity, an invitation to practice virtue, to grow in courage, in patience, in understanding. So if you're hurting right now, if something broke you, if you feel lost, overwhelmed, or hollow inside, don't rush to escape it. Breathe, feel it, and ask, what is this trying to teach me? You might be surprised, because sometimes the pain that once felt unbearable becomes the foundation of your strength. Reflections. Pain is not your enemy. It's part of your path. You are allowed to cry, to scream, to fall apart for a moment. But after that, you're also allowed to rise, not as the same person, but as someone more aware, more grounded, more awake. Pain is temporary, but the lesson is eternal. And once you've learned it, no one can ever take that away from you. 3. Accept what you can't control. Act on what you can. There's a quiet war that happens inside every one of us. A battle between control and surrender, between what we wish we could change and what we actually can. We try to control time, people, outcomes, perceptions. But most of the time, life doesn't ask for our permission. It just happens. Without warning, without explanation. A friend walks away. A job is lost. A storm ruins everything you've built. And in those moments, we feel powerless. But here's what the Stoics knew. Power doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from knowing what you can control and letting go of the rest. Epictetus once said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." This wasn't just a quote. It was the foundation of his entire philosophy. What's up to you? Your thoughts, your choices, your actions, your attitude. What's not up to you? Other people's opinions, the past, the future, the weather, the economy, the outcome. Most of our suffering comes from confusing the two. We try to change people. We replay the past. We stress about tomorrow. And in the process, we lose the present. We lose our peace. But imagine this. What if you fully accepted that you're not in charge of everything? What if you let go of trying to control the wind and focused instead on how you adjust your sails? That's what Stoicism teaches. It's not about apathy. It's not about giving up. It's about using your energy wisely. If something is out of your hands, release it. If something is within your reach, take action. It's that simple and that hard. Let's say someone doesn't like you. You can't control that, but you can control how you treat them, with dignity, with clarity, with boundaries. Let's say you failed at something important. You can't undo it, but you can decide how to respond. You can study it, grow from it, start again. Let's say you're stuck in traffic. You can't move the cars, but you can control your reaction. You can breathe. You can choose not to ruin your day over something you cannot change. This isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's strength rooted in reality. Because the more you fight what you cannot control, the more exhausted you become, and the less power you have to change what's actually in your hands. The Stoics called this practice the dichotomy of control. It's about clarity, focus, freedom. When you stop wasting energy on the uncontrollable, you free up space to become the kind of person you were meant to be. Present, resilient, grounded. It's like standing in the middle of a storm. The winds howl, the rain pours, but inside you're still, because you know the storm is not yours to command, but your breath, your next step, that is yours. This mindset can change your entire life. Instead of chasing certainty, you practice flexibility. Instead of forcing outcomes, you focus on your effort. And instead of clinging to control, you build trust in yourself, in the process, in something greater than your limited view. Yes, there will be moments that break your plans. People will disappoint you. Life won't unfold the way you imagined. But that's not the point. The point is how you respond. Will you spend your life fighting waves, or will you learn how to swim with them? Because every time you release what you can't control, you gain power over what you can. And that's where transformation begins, not in domination, but in discernment. Reflections. Think about your own life. What are you holding on to right now that's completely out of your control? Whose approval are you still chasing? What mistake are you still reliving? What future are you trying to guarantee? Take a deep breath. Let it go. Now ask yourself, what is in your control today? Your effort, your habits, your words, your mindset. That's where your power is. The world doesn't owe you control, but it does offer you freedom if you're willing to see it. And so accept what you can't control, act on what you can, and let that be enough. 4. You are not your failures. At some point in your life, you will fail. It won't feel poetic. It won't feel like a movie scene. It will feel raw, embarrassing, heavy, real. Maybe you'll lose something you cared about. Maybe you'll make a decision you regret. Or maybe you'll simply fall short of your goals, of your values, of who you thought you were supposed to be. And in that moment, your mind will try to convince you that you are the failure. Not that you experienced it, but that you are it. It whispers, you're not good enough. You always mess things up. This is who you are now. But let's stop right there, because that voice, it's not truth. It's not wisdom. It's fear. It's ego. It's pain speaking without perspective. The Stoics remind us, you are not the event. You are the observer of it. You are not your worst day. You are the one who chooses how to respond after it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Failure is an outside event. Your reaction to it, that's where your character lives. You see, failure is not a label. It's a lesson. It's data. It's direction. It's life saying, not this way. Try again. Try differently. Even the most successful people in the world have failed repeatedly, publicly, painfully. The difference, they didn't become their failures. They used them. Thomas Edison once said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That's the mindset. That's the posture of someone who separates identity from outcome. Because when you think you are your failures, you stop trying. You hide. You shrink. You give up before life even has a chance to show you what's next. But when you realize that failure is just part of becoming, you begin again, wiser, calmer, stronger. You adjust your approach. You reflect on what went wrong. You sharpen your tools, and you move forward, not as a broken version of yourself, but as a more refined one. Stoicism teaches us to detach our self-worth from external events, from wins and losses, from praise and criticism, because the goal isn't to impress the world. The goal is to live in accordance with your values, to show up, to grow, to respond with virtue, even in difficulty. Let's be honest. You'll make bad choices. You'll misread people. You'll say things you wish you could take back. You'll trust the wrong voice inside your head, but none of that defines you. It just reminds you that you're human, that you're learning. And if you can meet those moments with honesty, with humility, with the willingness to learn, you'll rise. Not as someone who never fails, but as someone who refuses to stay down. This is the deeper lesson. Failure is not final. It's feedback. And you are not a failure. You are the person who is still showing up, still evolving, still willing to try again. Reflections. So ask yourself, what failure are you still carrying like a name tag? What mistake are you still letting define your worth? What moment are you using as proof that you're not enough? It's time to let that go. Not because it didn't happen, but because it doesn't own you. You can learn from it. You can grow through it. But you don't have to become it. You are more than what didn't work. You are more than a lost job, a broken relationship, a bad decision. You are still here, still breathing, still capable. And that means one thing: your story isn't over. You are not your failures. You are the strength that stands back up, the wisdom that emerges from pain, the quiet courage that says, "I'll keep going." 5. Don't seek pity, seek growth. When life hurts, our first instinct is often to reach out, to tell someone, to be heard, to be seen, and that's human. We all want to feel understood. We all want to feel that someone out there knows what we're going through, but there's a line we often cross without realizing. A subtle shift from sharing pain to seeking pity, and pity, though it may feel warm at first, is a cold shelter to live in, because when you start to crave sympathy, you stop seeking strength. When you start needing others to feel sorry for you, you forget that you are capable, that you can rise, that you can grow. The Stoics remind us, pain is inevitable, but how you respond to it, that's where your power is. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." He didn't say, "Seek comfort." He didn't say, "Let others carry your burden." He said, "Let it strengthen you. Let it refine your thinking. Let it shape your soul." It's okay to talk about what hurt you. It's okay to grieve, to cry, to feel lost. But then what? Will you let that pain turn into an identity? Will you rehearse the same story over and over until it becomes all that you are? Or will you step forward and ask, what can this pain teach me? What can I build from this? Because pain is not an end point. It's a fork in the road. One direction leads to self-pity. The other leads to growth. Self-pity feels good in the moment. It attracts attention. It gives you a reason not to change. But over time, it traps you. It makes you smaller. It makes you dependent on outside validation. Growth is quieter. It doesn't always get applause. It doesn't always get noticed. But it's real. And it lasts. When you choose growth over pity, you begin asking different questions. You stop saying, "Why me?" And you start saying, "How can I move forward? What can I build with what's left? What part of me needs to evolve?" This isn't about toxic positivity. It's not about pretending everything's fine. It's about refusing to stay stuck in a story where you're always the victim. You can be wounded and still walk. You can be tired and still take one more step. You can be hurt and still be honest with yourself. When you stop seeking pity, you stop waiting for someone to save you, and you realize you were your own answer all along. This is what the Stoics lived by. Not comfort, not ease, but virtue, resilience, responsibility. They believed that within every obstacle was the opportunity to become greater, not in the eyes of the world, but in the depth of your own soul. So let go of the need to be pitied. You don't need it. You're not broken. You're not helpless. You're healing. You're transforming. You're becoming. There is more strength in quiet perseverance than in loud complaining. There is more dignity in facing your pain than in collecting sympathy. And there is more power in choosing to grow than in being comforted for staying the same. Reflections. Look at your life. Where have you been seeking pity instead of power? Where have you told the same painful story, not to heal from it, but to stay inside it? It's okay. We've all done it. It's part of the process. But now you know, and now you can shift. Start seeking growth. Start asking more of yourself, not in a harsh way, but in a loving, honest, and courageous way. You don't need others to feel sorry for you. You need to believe in your ability to rise, because you are not a victim of your pain. You are the builder of your future. So don't seek pity. Seek growth, and watch who you become. 6. Time alone heals if you let it. Silence, stillness, solitude. These are not things most people chase. In fact, many run from them. They turn up the music, scroll endlessly, fill their calendars, not because they're busy, but because they're afraid of being alone. But the truth is, there are some wounds that can only be healed in silence. There are answers that only appear when the noise fades. Time alone is not punishment. It's not loneliness. It's a space, a sacred space, where your mind can rest, where your soul can speak, where your heart can mend itself without distraction. The Stoics understood this deeply. They often retreated, not to escape the world, but to return to themselves. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, wrote in his journal, each morning and night, he was surrounded by people, yet still carved out time to be alone. Why? Because even emperors need reflection, because healing is not loud, it's not dramatic, it doesn't announce itself. Healing is slow, quiet, personal. It doesn't happen when you force it. It happens when you give it space. When you're alone, you're no longer performing, no longer trying to impress. You're just there, with your thoughts, your emotions, your truth. And sometimes that's uncomfortable, because you can't hide behind a smile or distract yourself with noise. You have to face what's inside. But that's exactly where healing begins. When you stop running, when you stop numbing, when you finally sit still long enough to hear your own heart speak. First, it might be chaotic. Old memories, regrets, anger, sadness, confusion. But stay. Don't rush to escape. Don't judge it. Let it move through you. Let the silence wash over you, like rain that cleanses the dust. Eventually, something shifts. The noise quiets, the fog lifts, and you begin to see not the version of yourself others expect, but who you really are and who you're becoming. Time alone teaches you how to rely on yourself, how to sit with your emotions without needing to fix them right away, how to listen without reacting. It's not weakness, it's a deep form of strength. Because if you can be at peace when you're alone, you can be free anywhere. In solitude, you learn that not every itch needs to be scratched. Not every feeling needs to be acted on. Not every thought deserves your belief. You learn to observe, to breathe, to let go, and slowly, healing happens. Not because you pushed for it, but because you allowed it. You allowed the wounds to close. You allowed the grief to soften. You allowed the anger to dissolve. And in that stillness, you met a version of yourself that was waiting for you all along. The one who doesn't need validation. the one who doesn't panic when alone, the one who knows how to be okay, even in the dark. Reflections. So if you find yourself hurting, if life has shaken you, and you don't know where to go next, try this. Don't run. Don't fill the space with noise. Just be still. Turn off the world for a while. Close your eyes. Listen. There's healing in solitude, but only if you let it in. Not all growth looks like movement. Sometimes it looks like sitting quietly with your own breath. Let time do its work. Let space hold you. You don't have to rush. You don't have to perform. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to show up to your own presence, to your own healing. Time alone is not empty. It's full of truth, full of restoration, full of you. So let it heal you. Let it hold you. Let it remind you that peace isn't something you find out there. It's something you build in here. 7. Rebuild from your core, not from the expectations of others. After a fall, most people don't ask, "What do I truly want now?" Instead, they ask, "What do people expect from me?" It's a quiet trap, a subtle pressure to recover fast, to look strong, to prove you're okay. But if you're not careful, you'll rebuild yourself based on other people's timelines, other people's opinions, other people's image of who they think you should be. And that version of you, it might look impressive, it might even win applause, but it will feel hollow, exhausting, disconnected from your truth. The Stoics taught something very different. They believed in living in alignment with your core, not with applause, not with trends, not with status. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Not look like one. Be one. Not according to someone else's checklist, but based on your principles, your clarity, your inner compass." So when life knocks you down and you have to rebuild, start there, not with the question, "How do I impress them?" but with the question, "What kind of person do I want to become now?" Strip away the noise, the expectations, the pressure to prove something, and ask, "What matters to me? What values do I want to live by? What kind of life feels honest to who I really am?" Because if you rebuild based on pressure, you'll live in performance. But if you rebuild from your center, you'll live in peace. That doesn't mean people will always understand you. They might not. That doesn't mean they'll agree with your choices. They probably won't. But this path, it's the one that leads to freedom, because it's exhausting to live for approval. It's draining to shape your life around what others think is acceptable. And worst of all, it disconnects you from your soul. You start chasing likes instead of purpose. You start curating a life that looks good online, but feels empty in private. The Stoics would remind you, fame is fleeting, image is fragile, but virtue, that lasts, that builds, that sustains you when the world turns silent. So ask yourself, who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when there's no performance left to give? That's your foundation. That's where you begin. Maybe your fall exposed some truths. Maybe it showed you that the life you were building before wasn't truly yours. Good. Now you can start again, not from ego, but from honesty. This is your moment to slow down, to listen inward, to ask, what does growth look like to me? Not based on their praise, not based on their timelines, but based on the deepest part of you. That's always been there. And here's the truth. You don't need permission to rebuild from your core. You just need courage. The courage to say no to what's expected and yes to what's aligned. The courage to disappoint others in order to stay true to yourself. Because pleasing everyone is a fast path to losing yourself. But living from your core, even if it's quieter, even if it takes longer, will lead you back to peace. Reflections. Take a breath. Now ask yourself honestly, are you rebuilding for them or for you? Are you trying to prove something or to become something? You don't owe the world a performance. You owe yourself the truth. And your truth might not be flashy. It might not go viral. It might not check every box. But if it's rooted in your values, your peace, your quiet conviction, it will last. You've already fallen. There's no need to rise for show. Rise for real. Rise from your center. Don't rebuild the mask. Rebuild the foundation. Not for their expectations, but for your own evolution. Because when you rebuild from your core, you don't just recover. You rise. Authentic. Unshakable. Free. 8. Forgive yourself for not knowing better. There's a moment that comes for everyone. A moment when you look back at your past and suddenly realize how blind you were. You remember the choices you made, the people you trusted, the signs you ignored, and it hits you. I should have known better. And with that thought comes the weight, the guilt, the shame. You begin to turn your past into a punishment, not just for what you did, but for what you didn't know. But here's the truth. You were not foolish. You were not weak. You were simply in progress. No one enters this life with all the answers. We grow through trial. We learn through error. We gain wisdom through failure. The Stoics knew this. They never claimed perfection. They expected imperfection. They taught that virtue isn't about always making the right call. It's about responding well when you don't. Marcus Aurelius made mistakes. So did Epictetus. So did Seneca. They didn't dwell in guilt. They reflected. They adjusted. They moved forward. You can do the same. If you're still holding on to a version of yourself that didn't know better, the one who let people walk all over them, the one who ignored the truth because it was inconvenient, the one who stayed when they should have left, understand this. That version of you deserves understanding, not punishment. You were doing the best you could with what you had, at the level of awareness you had. When you were younger, you believed what you were told. You assumed people had good intentions. You thought love meant sacrifice. You didn't yet know what betrayal looked like. You hadn't yet seen how manipulation works. But now you know, because you lived it. Because life taught you, not through books, but through brokenness, through tears, through silence. You grew not just from the pain, but from the realization that followed it. So stop cursing your old self. You don't need to drag them through the dirt every time you remember a mistake. You don't need to call them names in your mind. You don't need to relive that moment on repeat. You need to do one thing. Forgive them. Forgive the part of you that was still learning, that believed too quickly, that held on too tightly, that stayed too long, that didn't see the truth until it was too late. That version of you cracked open the door for who you are today. They walked blindly so you could see more clearly. They took the hit so you could grow from it. And that deserves compassion. So, what does forgiveness look like? It's when you can recall the memory without flinching, without hating yourself, without letting it define your worth. It's when you can say, yes, that happened, but it's no longer who I am. You are not your worst decision. You are not the version of you who didn't know better. You are the one who is learning, still showing up, still evolving. There's no shame in growth, only proof that you're still becoming. You've done enough self-blame. Now it's time for self-respect. You've spent long enough replaying the same regret. Now it's time to move, not away from the past, but toward a wiser future. Reflections. You don't need to keep punishing yourself for a moment when you simply didn't know better. Let that chapter close. Thank it for what it taught you, and walk forward, not with shame, but with strength. Because the you that stands here now is not the same person who made those mistakes. And that is exactly the point. 9. Focus on the next step, not the whole mountain. When you fall, everything ahead of you can feel overwhelming. The rebuilding, the recovery, the emotional work, the uncertainty. It's like standing at the base of a massive mountain, looking up, trying to imagine how you'll ever make it to the top again. And the truth is, that mountain might be real. It might be tall. It might even feel impossible. But you don't climb a mountain by thinking about the summit. You climb it by taking the next step. One foot, then the other, over and over again. The Stoics understood this. They didn't try to control the entire future. They focused on the present moment, the decision right in front of them, the action they could take today. Epictetus once said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well." That wisdom. It's about shifting your focus from what's out of reach to what's within your hands. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a perfect 5-year plan. You don't need every detail to be in place. You just need to focus on the next step. If you're trying to heal, don't worry about being fully over it. Focus on making it through this day, one breath at a time. If you're trying to rebuild your life, don't stress about having everything fixed overnight. Ask yourself, what's one small action I can take today to move forward? Maybe it's making that phone call. Maybe it's cleaning your room. Maybe it's journaling for 10 minutes. Maybe it's drinking water instead of numbing the pain. Small steps, done consistently, create real change. The problem is, we get stuck because we think we need to do it all. We get paralyzed by the size of the mountain, so we never take the first step. But clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from moving forward. Action brings momentum, and momentum changes your relationship with the journey. You begin to feel capable. You begin to remember who you are. You begin to trust that yes, the mountain is real, but so is your ability to climb it. Here's the truth. You are not weak because you feel overwhelmed. You are human, but you will stay overwhelmed if you keep staring at the top instead of starting at your feet. So stop asking, how will I do this for the next 5 years? Start asking, what's the next right thing for the next 5 minutes? That's how transformation begins, not with a giant leap, but with a quiet, steady pace, step by step. Think about the Stoics themselves. They didn't have easy lives. They lost loved ones. They faced wars. They endured exile and grief. But they kept going, not by conquering the future, but by mastering the present. They focused on what they could control. They let go of the rest, and they reminded themselves again and again that the way forward is always right here, in the next choice, the next action, the next breath. Reflections. So take a moment now. What's your mountain? What feels too big too far, too heavy, whatever it is. Stop staring at the top. Start focusing on the next foothold, the next step, the next moment of progress. You don't have to carry it all right now. You just need to carry this part. The weight of tomorrow doesn't belong to you yet. The pain of yesterday doesn't define today. What you can shape is this moment. So ask yourself gently, what does forward look like right now? And then just take that one step, because that's how healing happens. That's how strength returns. That's how people rise after the fall. Not by sprinting, not by leaping, but by walking, one deliberate step at a time. 10. Every fall has the seed of a greater you. Nobody wants to fall. Nobody chooses to break. But when life forces you to the ground, something unexpected happens. You get to meet the version of yourself that would have never shown up if things had gone according to plan. The fall introduces you to who you are. When you have nothing left to hide behind, no title, no routine, no stability, just you, raw, exposed, real. And that moment, as painful as it is sacred, because every fall contains a seed, a quiet invitation to become someone greater than you ever thought you needed to be. At first, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like failure. It feels like shame. It feels like watching your old life dissolve with nothing to replace it. But the Stoics taught us that within adversity, there's always opportunity, even if you don't see it yet. Seneca wrote, "Misfortune is virtue's opportunity." He wasn't glorifying pain. He was revealing its hidden side, that the parts of us worth discovering usually don't wake up until everything around us falls asleep. You don't discover courage when everything's easy. You don't discover wisdom when everything makes sense. You don't discover depth until life pulls you deeper than you wanted to go. And when it does, you either resist it or you receive it. Not the pain, not the loss, but the message underneath it. What does this make possible? What part of me needs to grow through this? What have I been avoiding that now I must face? These are the questions that turn a fall into a transformation, because maybe what's collapsing was never meant to last. Maybe the version of you that broke was built on survival, not truth. And now you're being invited to rebuild from something deeper, not from fear, not from ego, not from expectations, but from clarity, from conviction, from something within you that the world didn't give you and therefore can't take away. This is not about romanticizing pain. This is about understanding it, owning it, using it. The fall humbles you. It strips you down, but it also shows you what you no longer need to carry. Sometimes it's only in falling that you realize what was weighing you down. And in letting go, you become lighter. You become clearer. You become you, unfiltered, unmasked, unapologetically real. When people talk about rock bottom, they often say it changed them. But the truth is, rock bottom doesn't change you. You change you. Right there, at the lowest point, you decide to rise, to rebuild, to grow. That seed in the fall, it doesn't bloom by itself. It waits for you to choose growth, to choose purpose, to choose to become the person you couldn't become when everything was comfortable. Comfort rarely transforms you. Discomfort does. Loss does. Adversity does. But only if you let it. So if you're in the middle of a fall right now, and everything feels upside down, know this: It's not over. You are not broken. You are being reformed, and the version of you that's on the other side of this will thank you for not giving up. Reflections. Every fall feels like an end, but it's often a beginning, a space where ego is quiet and the soul starts to speak. The seed is already there, not visible, but present, waiting for your intention, waiting for your action. Let it grow. Let it change you, not into someone else, but into more of who you really are. The fall is not the end of your story. It's the chapter where your real strength begins. If any part of this message spoke to you, let it sit with you. Let it guide your next step. And if you know someone else who needs to hear this, share this video with them. Subscribe for more calm, stoic reflections on how to live with strength, clarity, and peace. Until then, keep rising, one quiet, honest step at a time.